Today, I'm excited to welcome Hersh Rephun to the show. How is it going, Hersh? Thanks for joining me today.
It's going great, Brian. Thank you, man. It's good to be here.
Nice, nice. I appreciate you coming on, and on the show, we like to talk about people's journeys to get where they're at, what they're doing now, because they never seem to be linear. I named the show Direct or Detour. I could have just named the show Detour, because everybody I come upon has had at least some hiccups. But to figure out that journey, I like to let people know where they're at. So if you could introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who you are, what you got going on, and then we'll figure out how you got there.
Sounds good. So my name is Hersh. I'm a holistic brand therapist. I find that people really need to create their genuine brand, their personal brand through a combination of intent, self-awareness, just wanting to sell the truth. And if they start with that very basic idea of sell the truth with humor, with humanity, it'll end up where you want it to end up just fine. And that's kind of my story too, in that as much as I have a background in brand and creative and marketing and all of that, it really was this circuitous path. I think the path is like you said, Brian, it's always circuitous. It's always nonlinear. And I think where I can help people is take all of the twists and turns that they've taken themselves and figure out where it ends up in terms of their message, in terms of their mission.
Gotcha. So is this what you dreamed about doing as a kid?
No,
What'd you
no.
what'd you want to be?
I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a comedian. I did become a comedian, and that's part of that nonlinear path. You know, I did screenwriting. I moved from Miami. Talk about nonlinear. So I moved from Miami to New York, and I worked in advertising and a little bit in film in New York, and then moved to LA and married my wife in LA, and then we moved to Iowa, where she's from. So we moved
To be an
back to
actor?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, no, I was still doing comedy, which was fine because I think moving to the Midwest, I was able to play a lot of clubs in the Midwest. I would never have done some of that stuff if I had been still living in LA. But a working comedian goes on the road anyway, so
Right.
it's like a fairly a normal thing. But but it just plucked me out of everything that was going on, and then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, well, we're clearly not going anywhere now. So now for the next 18 months or whatever, in 2020, we were like, okay, we're just staying here and kind of hunkering down. And um, but I
I
like,
had some friends
yeah,
that
yeah,
were in the stand-up world around COVID, locally
yeah.
in like the Twin Cities and in Minneapolis in that area, and they had to pivot hard. Like
Oh yeah.
when you're doing the clubs, when you're doing the live events, and then there's no live events anymore, it really opened up an opportunity for them. Like they freaked out, like anybody, like because you just run in groups and you hear what they're talking about, and they freaked out that everything was closing. Like, what do we do? Because that's what they did.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, while I made some crazy videos and funny, clips with my kids and just all doing characters and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, it was nearly impossible to perform in front of an audience. Even if you had a whole wall of Zoom people, it really was hard. And then people even tried the drive-in,
Oh, right.
honking instead of laughing, and like, that stuff. I mean, look, props to anybody who toughed it through that. But I had already started doing um, agency work, creative work, working for footwear brands. I had a little boutique agency with a partner. We were doing fine up until COVID with that. So I was doing the comedy, but I was like, okay, well, the comedy is my passion. I don't make a living at it.
Right.
The creative direction is my job, and it's fine. And that was kind of where my life was at. And then COVID knocked out all that business, and it was like a reset button where you're like, well, do I want to go back out on the road and hustle sneaker business, which could or could not be there. Like
Right.
we didn't know. And it was that kind of instability that allowed me to say, well, you know what? I could try something else. I could try what I really love, which is working one-on-one with people who have a passion for something, and
For
using my
anything.
talent, well, for anything, but not working for a corporate entity, you
Hmm.
know, but rather an entrepreneur or a founder or a consultant or a coach, podcasters, people who are following their dream, but maybe they need a little bit of perspective or a little bit of direction on their brand. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing that, because I was podcasting. I was meeting people from all kinds of different businesses that did, I thought, you know what? I'll never again work for just one industry. I'll never again work for just sneakers or just soft goods or whatever it was.
I
It
mean,
was like,
it sounded like you were set up to, like, with redundancy. So you had the sneaker industry, you had the comedy stuff, and like, I know the
yeah,
comedy stuff wasn't supporting you, but if something happened to the sneaker thing, you could, you had a little bit of something, and everything went away.
yeah. I think I did a lot of, you point out something really interesting, Brian, which I haven't talked about, but I think I hedged my bets a lot.
Mm,
And you would think that maybe that's smart. Oh, he hedged his bet. He's got this, he's got that. But you're right. None of it was super secure. None of it was impervious to COVID. And obviously, most of us didn't plan for the contingency of a pandemic, but
right.
it's
The
okay.
country
Yeah,
shutting down.
go into let's activate COVID-19 mode. We didn't have that, but I think at that time, what did become clear to me was I was tired of hedging my bet, and I wanted to consolidate all the different things I could do. I felt like it was time for that circuitous kind of serpentine road to really lead to one point. And that for me was working with people on their personal brands. That for me was like, if I traced my career back 25 years, I was in some way, shape, or form doing that, you know, all the way through. Sometimes it's like your dream. You asked me, oh, what did you want to be when you were a kid? And I was like, yeah, I wanted to be an actor. But if you retrace my steps, I wasn't really going toward being an actor. I kept trying to do it,
Right.
trying to be on stage. But professionally, what I was really gravitating toward was this interpersonal brand building exercise. Because I worked with filmmakers, I worked with composers, all kinds of artists on their personal brands, historically. So I think the COVID thing, along with some meditation and other uh,
Like,
quantum consciousness.
subconsciously, uh, you were being pulled to what you should have been doing, but
Yes,
you had an
exactly.
idea of what you wanted to be, and you just didn't listen
Right.
to you didn't listen to yourself.
Well, I didn't, and you know what? the fact is, to be that required the kind of single-minded dedication that, why did I hedge my bet? Not because I'm a super practical person. I had a family, I had kids, I was raising children, and I was like, that whole, you know, throw caution to the wind thing doesn't fit with that. And so I was hedging my bets because that was a practical thing to do in that situation. But had I truly been wanting to be an actor and be single-minded about it, I never would start a family. Like, it wouldn't
Right.
make sense. Yeah, it wouldn't
Right.
make sense.
I
You know?
was a bartender for a decade, and man, it was a single man's game until I
Yeah,
wasn't single anymore, and it was like this doesn't make sense.
yeah,
But so it forced your hand. COVID forced your hand to go
yeah,
all in on something, or you made
yeah.
that realization at that time. If you if COVID didn't happen, do you think you would have ever gone all in on one thing?
I think if COVID didn't happen, I have a feeling that I would have gone all in on the wrong thing,
On the wrong
because
thing.
if COVID didn't happen, I would have what I did, what my backup thing always was like, if the PR, creative direction, marketing thing is dry, I'll go do the comedy, but I'll create something, some content that I think I'm going to sell or something.
Mm,
So I would write a series pilot. I would always default to entertainment. And I'm good enough that it could get somewhere, but nothing's so good that it absolutely sells, right? So I would have I would have done what I traditionally did: write a pilot, try to sell it, or do a series, launch a series online, and try to sell it. I was, at the time that COVID hit, my backup was write a stage show, write a stage show that I was calling Truth Tastes Funny, which was kind of a semi-autobiographical thing, musical comedy show.
okay.
And I would have mounted it. I had a venue in New York. I had a producer is a good friend of mine, who's a Grammy winning producer. I would have got this. The scary thing is, I would have gotten it off the ground. Now, would it have made money, or would it have just been fun and distracting? And instead, I went on this journey where I had, because I literally had to do something different to try to make a living, because I couldn't
Right,
mount that show during COVID. I
right.
was like, okay, I'll do podcasting, I'll do peak performance, class. That got me into meditating. I had a guest on my podcast who was a quantum consciousness accelerator, and I did all this internal exploration that I never would have bothered to do. And it was through that exploration that I realized, oh, maybe I'm drawn to this thing, and I just keep using the creativity, the acting and comedy as a distraction. I'm just distracting myself from my uh from what really is kind of my dream, which does involve this, it does involve performing, it involves writing a book. I probably wouldn't have written a book because I had
Right.
done everything but write a book. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to write one of these, bullshit kind of, books that people write that's not a real book. I'm gonna, that just is a business book.
Right.
40 pages of, stuff from Chat GPT. You know, I'm gonna I'm gonna actually write a book. I'm gonna sit down and spend a year and really write a book. And that book, Selling the Truth, is coming out, shortly. But I'm super
How
proud.
was that? Did you enjoy so you dedicated it as a job to write the book? Is that
No, no,
no?
because I didn't feel like the book was going to make money. I
Right.
felt like books are for thought leadership, and be great if it does make money, um, but I considered it, at least I did. You're right, Brian, because in a way, it was tied to everything I've done has coalesced. So in other words, the podcast, the books, speaking, going on to events, and networking is all about the personal brand strategy stuff that I'm signing clients, working with clients, enrolling them in my programs, starting a mastermind. Everything is all about that. So the book was like part of a job, because it was like, okay, well, I'm 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 gonna get up every morning, working with an editor. I'm gonna get this book to where I'm really proud of it.
Nice.
And the book will somewhat show who I am as a brand therapist, let's say. My unique way of working, that non-linear path that, leads me back to where I started in a lot of ways, but with a renewed commitment to what I do, and still not like quite anybody else, which I think all of us should tap into that. That's
Right.
why another reason I call it holistic brand therapy is because I think a lot of us need to tap into uh, who we are, and not who we think the world wants us to be, or we think the audience wants us to be. Um,
Right. Right.
and I
Yeah.
and my yeah, my mission is to prove to them that they are incomparable, and that there is a way to market and package and present their brand. There is a way, and it doesn't involve capitulating to anybody else.
What what does working with you look like in a nutshell for someone?
It's first of all, it's fun. Um, I know that people don't, I don't put that on my website, although they probably get the idea from looking at videos and from talking to me. But it's fun, it's real. I spend usually 90 days with a client. Um, we do a number of conversations, probably like 9 1 hour sessions,
Okay.
but I don't ask anything else of the client, because I know people are busy, and the last thing anybody wants is another thing. So it's not a course, it's not a do it yourself thing. It's really done for you no matter how you look at it. You can be engaged. I prefer that you be engaged, but um but we're going to figure out who your ideal buyer is for your brand, what your voice is. We're going to create a brand voice guide that is essentially like any style guide for a brand, except it's all vocabulary and strategy. You know how we all try to memorize like 30-second intros, and I help blanks do blank, and I do it without blank and with blank. It's like that's great if you just want to memorize that one sentence, but what are you going to do in an actual conversation?
Right.
So the idea is master your brand language, develop your own brand language around who you are, and and as you grow into a bigger entity, share this brand voice guide with your salespeople, share it with your assistants, share it with your with your publicist, if you get one. That way everybody has a consistent and concise and impactful view of who you are, what
Right.
you're doing, and what your mission is, and you can update it. I do a free consult with them, 90 days after this, to see how it's going, see what, do an audit, another personal brand audit with them, and maybe they need a little shift here and there, um, in strategy and language.
I
Uh,
I love
yeah.
the hands off the engaged but hands off. Like it
Yeah.
seems a lot like especially small business owners or entrepreneurs are looking to improve themselves, and they spend money to do it, which is hard in the first place with a small business or a budding family or whatever. You're trying to make a
Yeah.
transition, so you're dumping money into stuff. You're buying work.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm gonna do it, I mean, I
Yeah.
might as well not pay for it and do it myself.
Right. Right, I know. And a lot of people will offer, a DIY option of, if you don't want to spend the money or you don't have the money, you know, and I get that, and I've done that, and I find that um what I really want out of a consultant or a coach or a therapist is to do something that I can't do
Right.
for myself. Now, if I learn how to do stuff, which is my goal with the brand voice guide, what my goal was, I didn't want them to have to hire a writer every time they wanted to write something. So I wanted to arm you with the words, with the language so that you could kind of create your own email campaign. You could, yeah, and maybe I have a mastermind that I do with clients where when they come into the program, they attend the mastermind as part of it, but they can continue with me in this mastermind, so they don't have to keep me on retainer. They don't have to pay me big bucks um, to be on speed dial.
Right.
But if they're in the mastermind, they can call me for something because people don't want to be alone. I get that. It's
And they
being
have access to the other folks in the mastermind too, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
the hive mind, especially
Yes.
when everybody gets on the same page. So like they've obviously all interacted with you and they jive with you, and so
Right.
by default you probably jive with the other folks, and that hive think is fantastic. I find that some of the most valuable parts of anything that I've ever signed up for was that group chat or that conference call with a bunch of people the same mindset.
Yeah, and I've piloted it where I brought a bunch of people together. I've done it a couple times. It wasn't a monthly thing, but I did one where I had 3 sessions with, 10 people, a group of 10. I think maybe a couple of them had met, but mostly they did not know each other, but they all had interacted with me. And I had surmised that these were cool people who were going to bring a lot
Right.
to the party.
Right.
And the other time I had been at an event, and one person from the event said, would you bring a few of us from the event into a mastermind, like a mini mastermind, like and so they all knew each other, but at the same time, it was amazing for the reason you described. They were able to help each other and be honest with each other. If everybody comes in with the idea of selling the truth, then they know that they're going to be able to count on honest input,
Right. Right.
and
For
that's
sure.
super valuable.
Hersh, we're kind of pushing up here. I'd like to give the guest plenty of opportunity to plug what they got going on, who your ideal client, who should be reaching out, and how to get a hold of you, or like your podcast, where they can find that. Take the stage and let people know where they can find you.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your having me on. You've been super gracious as a host. Yeah, you can go to yesbrandbuilders.com, and everything is there. The podcast is there. It will have a pop-up where you can get on the pre-order list. You don't have to purchase the book, but you can be on the pre-order list for the book. And you can certainly book an appointment with me there, and you can even see some of my comedy just for your just for your amusement. And you can see, of course, interviews with clients and social proof and all that good stuff. So yes, brandbuilders.com. and also just my name, HershRephun.com, goes to the same place.
Perfect. You still doing comedy?
No.
No.
I say that with a lot of love for comedy, because for a while I couldn't go to stand-up comedy shows when I wasn't doing it, because I was still had this burning thing, like I wanted to do it, and it was uncomfortable being in the audience when I should be on stage. Now I've done it, gotten good at it, comfortable with it, and I don't have to do it anymore. Now I'm focusing on speaking and sharing my knowledge with audiences that need that specific thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hersh, I appreciate you taking the time to be hang out today and have a conversation. I learned a lot, and I think that the value came out to the audience. I hope they reach out, find more out about you, and get in touch. So it's nice talking to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.